Bryan Johnson is one of the most unique backstories. His goal was to earn enough money by 30 to stop chasing money. He started in door-to-door credit card sales, which morphed into a credit payment processing system. Then they were bought by PayPal for over $800 million. Now he's using his money to advance the science on longevity, using himself as a testing subject and putting out all his findings for free on his website. We actually interviewed him in Los Angeles, and so today we're going to go over 3 things we learned from speaking with Bryan Johnson. I would say that no one has brought this space more to the forefront over the last 12, 18 months than Bryan Johnson.
Yeah, he just exploded. It's amazing.
We both met him. He was actually a keynote at Healthspan Summit. So he's worked with a team of doctors, nutritionists, and personal trainers. He's doing all kinds of testing, blood testing, MRIs, colonoscopies to monitor his health, monitoring lipid levels, speed of urination. That's a thing.
Speed of urination.
That's a thing.
I guess it is.
He's controlling his diet, consisting mainly of nutrient-dense, plant-based foods. He avoids processed foods, alcohol, sugar. He sounds boring. Sounds like me. Follows a strict exercise regime, strict sleep schedule, and he's made himself something like 26 years younger.
Yeah, I think he's been spending $2 million a year. He calls himself the most measured man in history, and I actually think he has the data to back it up.
Why is he doing this?
I mean, I thought it was fascinating because so much of what people say about Bryan Johnson is, I guess, based on the social media landscape we have, it's like attacking him for this and that.
He literally looks like a lizard person. That's the goal.
But when I sat down with him, I wanted to understand the mindset and the philosophy behind it. And he defines himself as a modern day Magellan.
Magellan, which was circumnavigating the globe. I love the perspective of if we have the thought experiment where we're in the year 2500 and people are reminiscing about what happened in the early 21st century, right now, us. What did we do right now that changed the course of humanity?
It's the idea of he's traversing a world that has never yet been explored. And we didn't even have the technology to do this, even as recent as 5 years ago. So, he's taking it as far as he can, and he's basically a pioneer breaking new ground. So regardless of what you think about his approach or anything else, I mean, I have a lot of respect for anybody who is doing that, and he's making the protocols free.
Okay, so Bryan has spent all this money. How are they actually validating how he's becoming younger? Let's define what that means.
So the bottom line is we do have a lot of testing systems and tools that we can use, whether it's genetic testing, you have MRIs, ultrasounds, blood tests. So there's a multitude of different tools that are being used to try to measure biological versus chronological age. So that's the
biological age.
That's the key thing, right? So you could chronologically be 47, but then we do a test and it could say biologically you're 38 or 78. Depends,
So let's take one test. What's one example that everyone would kind of agree that, if you corrected that.
So here's where the science gets fuzzy.
Oh, we're getting fuzzy on here.
And this is why everybody needs to understand this. So whenever anybody makes a claim that my biological age is below my chronological age, you have to understand this is emerging science.
Okay.
This is not fixed, perfect, agreed upon. In fact, science is never fixed and agreed upon. Science is an evolution. Science is a journey. And
the best information we have right now.
Exactly. And this is one of the most frustrating things to me is when anyone says the science is settled. The science is never supposed to be settled, right? The science was settled that we were at the center of the universe until Galileo came along and said, actually, that's wrong. There was a paper that came out recently, just a few months ago. It was phenomenally important for this. So basically, they had this study where they started to look at every organ system had certain benchmarks for each organ.
Right.
This is really important for longevity because what happens is nobody dies of old age. You die of kidney failure. You die of neurocognitive degeneration. You die of heart failure. And so what they could look at is your cardiovascular system could be 78, but your immune system could be 50. And they started looking at these different systems and these benchmarks so that you could actually look at what is going to kind of kill you first. And so this is very new science. This is part of what Bryan Johnson has actually been testing on himself to try to get the age, not of his whole body, but try to get your kidney function younger, your heart function younger, even the muscular strength, right? We lose muscular skeletal strength. We lose bone density.
Right.
So it's not one thing that you look at that, if my bone density is that of a 30-year-old, that you're done. That's just one measurement.
Here's the problem when I look at what Bryan is doing. I have a kid, I have businesses, I have a lot of things to do. And trying to work all of this or any of this, never mind spending $2 million a year.
Right.
Like if I have $200 a month and, 2 hours per week, how can I distill that down? So how feasible is it for an individual to actually optimize themselves like Bryan Johnson did today? What are the limits and what's possible for the layperson?
Is it feasible for the average person to be a Bryan Johnson? No. And is it even, practical? Probably not. But again, he's Magellan. Not everybody had to be Magellan.
Right.
We had Magellan to go find what was there.
Yeah.
And then
Bring
create a
back the
map.
maps. We have the maps. Now you have a road map.
Right.
Now you only got to worry about the weather.
Then they made trade lanes, and then they found what was the best way for, trade winds. Where did they get stalled out, and where did they pick up good wind? It's the same metaphor.
Who knew this was going to turn into a navigation show? I guess we are navigating our health, though.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that was non-negotiable for Bryan in all this is family time. And I think, according to Gallup, 1/4 of people around the world are lonely. And loneliness actually kills. And I think if you look at, the blue zones around the world, one of the things that happens is very often community is very layered into that, right?
Yes.
So let's have a quick chat here with Dr. Greg, who's going to tell us a little bit about loneliness.
So loneliness is not a direct influencer of aging, right? So you're not going to be alone. Like, oh my God, where you been? By myself. You look 10 years older. That's not exactly what it is. Loneliness may actually lead to behaviors that can accelerate aging. So eating foods that are comfort foods, right? There's one thing about eating a bowl of berries when you're alone and feeling a little down versus eating 3 bowls of ice cream. I know ice cream is amazing. It can taste great.
But dairy can be inflammatory.
There are some recent studies, relatively recent studies in the last 2 years that have shown that loneliness can actually increase the risk of Alzheimer's and dementia. Never good. So there is an association, although it's not a direct thing. So I don't want you guys thinking, oh my God, I need to go out there and meet all these people so I don't age. But just think about the decisions that you're making, keeping your brain healthy, keeping your heart happy. So get out there and meet some people. Get out there on Tinder and start swiping. Oh my God. I'm so dumb to use that.
How do you balance enjoying life and longevity? Because I think, especially if you're talking about what Bryan is doing, it doesn't look fun. Like, how do you live life and not just become obsessed with how long can I live life?
You need to find that balance, and ultimately, it's up to all of us to decide where we want to draw that line. But I would just say one thing. Yes, you can indulge, you can have that ice cream, you can drink that alcohol, you can do whatever you want, but we're at this point fairly confident that if you have that amount of alcohol every day, you're shortening your life. Just like as if you're smoking cigarettes, you're shortening your life. So you have to decide, would you rather be there for your great-grandchildren and maybe stop drinking? Or do you want to indulge life and enjoy it and just be prepared to die younger? I mean, that's a choice too. We all have that choice.
I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. However, with all the technology that's happening, we're talking about maybe living to 100, 150 years. Is there a curveball in there? Like, as I look at Bryan Johnson, I'm like, well, okay, if he's made himself 20-ish years younger, and now he's going to live kind of at minimum another 20-ish, maybe 30 years, well, that puts him now to maybe 120. So that puts him to 2080. Where's the tech going to be 60 years from now? And if we can make it to 100 or 120 or 150, how much longer could that be?
So you don't even know this term, but you just explained what is called longevity escape velocity.
I didn't look at that. I didn't know. And I just learned something.
That is called longevity escape velocity.
Okay.
So that is this theory that if you can stay as healthy as possible for the next 20 years, they're going to have technology that will allow you to live another 20 years. And then you live those other 20 years. And then you'll find other technology that will allow you to live another 20 years.
That's the team I'm on.
And then you will just essentially keep going on this trajectory. And then the upper age limit of humans will have no limit.
That's why I'm longevity
escape velocity.
I'm going to get that tattooed just so I see it every day. All right. So the second thing we learned from interviewing Bryan Johnson is he trusts algorithms more than human judgment. What does that mean? Do you think relying on algorithms for personal health decisions is better than human judgment? Why or why not, Elias?
So this is I think this is one of the most controversial aspects of his goal to be the next Magellan, is rather than using human instinct or human ingenuity, he has outsourced the thinking to AI, basically in the algorithm, and feeding an algorithm with all of the data that his scientists and doctors and everybody and himself, they're feeding it into a system. And then that system is essentially spitting out what is the best protocols and timing and strategy. So in many ways, he is basically the first human who is outsourcing his thinking directly to AI or algorithms.
Why wouldn't we all do that, especially from a health point of view? I'm not going to try and Google all the things, right? Like, tell me what to do, AI.
Well, I think because most people watch Terminator and saw where that goes.
Okay, fair. What is some of the tech that can get people started with a little bit of inertia on their health journey?
Yeah, I mean, a wearable is, I think, probably one of the easiest ways to start. And pick your wearable of choice. If you already have an Apple Watch or something that you're wearing, you can start looking at it and applying the scientific method. So you don't need a bunch of other people. The scientific method is very simple. I can explain it to you in just very short points. You simply get a baseline, right? So you look at where your sleep is now, you introduce an intervention, and it's not one night. It's like introduce, for example, if we're measuring sleep. So I go for 2 weeks, I look at what my sleep average is based on my lifestyle, and it will fluctuate, but that's your baseline. Then you introduce your sleep intervention for, a minimum of 2 to 4 weeks.
What's the sleep intervention?
Could be anything. You could start taking melatonin. You could start doing breath work.
So let's pause. So I want to make sure we're lining this up. So you're telling me that for a couple of weeks, I'm taking the data from the wearable about my sleep as an example.
Yeah.
And then we're going to make some adjustments to try and improve my sleep.
Yes. So you're going to introduce something new, right? Okay. That's the intervention. And don't do 50 things. Do one thing. One thing. This is the biggest problem. People go, I'm going to change my sleep. And they do this and this and this, and you don't know what's working. So do one thing. So you could say, well, every night before I go to bed, I'm going to turn on a meditation app and I'm going to meditate for 10 minutes. It's all you have to do. Very simple. Do that for 3 to 4 weeks and see if it changes your sleep. If it does, now you have a new protocol.
So when we're experimenting with protocols, if it did make an adjustment, and now I want to add something else.
Right.
Is that now I have a new baseline because I'm doing the meditation every night?
You got it. So now you start stacking. Right. So that's your first intervention.
I like stacking things.
Yeah. And so then you stack on your next one and see what that changes next.
All right. So we're going to start with the wearable.
Yes.
Any preference on brands?
I'm agnostic.
Okay. And I've never had one, but I have a feeling we're going to be strapping one on to me.
We're going to be testing,
so I can learn all this data about myself and share it with the whole world. That's not scary.
Basically, this tech is already helping people develop discipline and know what works right now. There's already technology that has the algorithms that are telling you, for example, your Oura Ring that I'm wearing or your Whoop strap. And I think to some degree, the Apple Watch, you can even download specific sleep apps and it will tell you based upon your patterns, if you go to bed every night at 10:30, you get better sleep.
It's almost like you're gamifying discipline.
Right. And that's what Bryan Johnson is doing, is he has done the algorithm and it says if he goes to bed every time at 10:30, he gets the best sleep. So now his practice is just non-negotiable. I go to bed every night at 10:30 no matter what.
All right. So if it comes down to discipline, let's talk to Claudia quickly, who's going to give us some help on discipline.
All right. Thanks so much, Nick. Let's drill into that discipline topic. Let's see what the world of TikTok has to say about it. All right.
If you're having trouble getting things done, you do not need to find more time, okay? You need focused action, and you also need an environmental trigger. An environmental trigger is a little thing backed by science that you can use that makes staying focused super easy. Post-it notes is an example of an environmental trigger. Literally every morning I write down the top 3 things that I have to get done today. These are things I'm probably going to forget. And so you can use an environmental trigger right on your workstation in order to cue you so that you remember.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm distracted 24/7 with my phone pinging, my emails pinging, ducks singing outside my window, because our brain is not designed to pay attention to so many things all at once. But in order for you to get done what you want to get done, environmental triggers can be really helpful. Look at Bryan Johnson, for example. He has a regimen that is planned out to the T. Now, you have to understand that he's not relying on willpower for the most part. He has a lot of environmental triggers that help him stay on track. Reminders, he has people around him who constantly tell him what to do, what not to do, because relying on your willpower will likely not take you too far.
So I know your answer, but maybe I'll ask you, would you be willing to follow a strict health protocol designed by an algorithm if it promised near perfect health? Does it infringe on your personal freedom at all?
That's the question of this decade. All of the technology that we brought to this moment, this is the era, this is the decade. 2020 to 2030 is the decade of AI, robotics, and longevity. And this is now where the technology no longer is changing society, changing how we communicate, changing how we access information. It's now changing you.
Oh, no pressure. Okay. One last thing about Bryan is his philosophy basically is just don't die. You know, is there a deeper philosophy to this? Or is this just like, can I get every minute out of, possible?
It's the perennial question of humanity. I mean, humans have been trying to understand death since we could have cognitive functioning, right? I mean, even elephants bury their dead, right? You've had pets, they acknowledge death in some way. I mean, and that's maybe an underlying philosophical thing that's almost never talked about when people talk about health, is how much of this is around the fear of death.
See, that doesn't scare me. I want to be here as long as possible because I want to enjoy every minute I'm here, because I want to have every minute with my kid that I can possibly have.
And that's what drives, I think, a lot of this for people.
And also, to me, is where we're going as a civilization, as humans, right? I think
it's
all
a
of
very
this
cool time to be alive, right? Like in the Middle Ages, if you lived 100 years, the world didn't change.
Man, if you were born 200 years ago in Indiana, what was the biggest technological breakthrough in your lifetime? Like a new hoe for the farm? Like really? Like what did you see that affected your life?
So that's the thing. Right now, the idea of living another 50 or 100 years, I mean, the amount of transformation you're going to see and you're going to experience in your lifetime is just like astronomically interesting. And I think that's also what's driving some of this longevity, is underlying all of that. We realize that if I could live another 50 years, what is the world going to be like? So, I mean, the change is just going exponentially. So that's a fascinating time to be alive. There's never been a more exciting time to be alive than right now. Despite all of the negativity you're seeing on your feed, this is the best time ever to be here.
No question. There is no question. Man, if that doesn't wrap up this show, I don't know what does. Thanks for joining us on the first episode of The Future of Health. If you want to dive deeper, click here to watch the full interview with Bryan Johnson, and comment. Let us know. What do you want to learn about? What do you want us to dig into? Who do you want us to call? Where's my phone? I need to call people. We need to answer questions for you. Psst, you should absolutely subscribe. See you in the next show.